Every so often, a generational kind of player comes into the NBA, and that player is so good that it may not matter if their teams are actually low untradeable first-round picks or actually haven't developed established young players that they have drafted. We've seen this with Luka Doncic, as he was already able to push some Dallas Mavericks teams deeper than the quality of their roster suggests, even back when they still didn't have Kyrie Irving. Now, Victor Wembanyama appears to be on the same trajectory. Just like Luka, Wemby's able to thrive with the pieces placed by his team around him. But the difference is, unlike the Mavs with Luka, the San Antonio Spurs seem to be doing all the right things to support their young franchise centerpiece. They've drafted a couple of guards with real star upsides in Stephon and Dylan Harper in consecutive years, but even before that, the Spurs have already accumulated a surplus of draft picks that they could use to bring in another star talent in the future. However, Wembanyama's ascent has been so rapid that the Spurs had to consider accelerating things a bit, although they knew that if they were going to bring in an all-star, the cost had to be low and whoever that player would be should want to be in San Antonio long-term, and they checked off both boxes with the acquisition of De'Aaron Fox during last season's trade deadline. As a result of all those things happening, for a team who you could say is still technically in the middle of a rebuild, the Spurs are definitely looking way ahead of schedule. San Antonio's currently looking like a top 5 team in the NBA, while also being one of only 4 teams this season who's putting up top 10 marks both offensively and defensively, alongside the Thunder, the Rockets, and the Timberwolves. Obviously, the Spurs' success all starts with Victor Wembanyama, but the thing is, Wemby has actually missed 14 games this year due to various injuries, and what's impressive about that is, the Spurs have still actually posted a 10-4 win-loss record in all those games, and a lot of this is because of their three-headed attack at the guard spot with De'Aaron Fox, Stephon and Dylan Harper. Though the thing is, ever since the Spurs had the fortune of selecting Dylan Harper second overall in last year's draft, there have been questions about the long-term vision for the team's backcourt spots, of which ideally there can only ever be 2 of Fox, and Harper together on the floor at any given time. This idea is also supported by the fact that, as of the making of this video, this Spurs guard trio have only shared the floor for a grand total of 15 minutes this season. But still, when you look at every possible 2-player pairing between Fox, and Harper that San Antonio's put out on the floor, the team has actually produced net positive ratings for every possible combination. And in those minutes when no one among those 3 guards were on the floor, the Spurs have actually dipped to a miserable minus 31.2 net rating. Well, obviously, those advanced numbers produced by lineups with San Antonio's guards are only good to decent and not yet mind-blowing, but the idea here is that a larger sample size and more time spent by those guards with a fully healthy Victor Wembanyama would just elevate the Spurs net ratings to elite levels across the board. But whatever the case may be, the Spurs have just assembled an unrivaled collection of guards who generate pressure at the rim, each with a different style, and as we've seen throughout this season, San Antonio having this much talent at the guard spot could be a real feature and not a bug. First off, there's De'Aaron Fox, who has long been identified as the most likely to be traded among those 3 guards in the future, and that's by virtue of his age relative to Harper and Kessel. But there might not be an offensive player more important to the Spurs' win-now ambitions than Fox. He kept the team afloat while all 3 of Wemby, Harper, and Kessel were recovering from injuries in November, wherein Fox ramped up his usage and output to levels we actually hadn't seen from him in years. No one else in this Spurs team, or even in the NBA for that matter, is capable of mixing drag race speed with flexibility quite like Fox. And the crazy thing is, guarding him has only gotten more complex for defenders this season, because Fox is not only attempting 3-pointers at a career best rate, but also the majority of his 3-pointers this season have actually been self-created and out of pick-and-roll actions. Overall, Fox is currently shooting a career-best 38.5% on pull-up 3-pointers and an even better 47.9% on pull-up jumpers inside the arc. He's also averaging 13 drives per game, which ranks 22nd in the entire league. And with that, he's been able to provide a level of versatile off-the-bounce shot making that neither Kessel nor Harper can replicate as of now. It's just that Fox is the only player on the Spurs roster who can reliably pull up from anywhere on the floor, and it's just genuinely hard to imagine San Antonio maintaining its offensive efficiency without Fox's ideal combination of rim pressure and pull-up jump shooting. But whereas Fox offers that kind of dynamic scoring, Stephon and Dylan Harper on the other hand are relentless drivers who combine strength with intuitive change of pace dynamics when attacking the rim. According to Cleaning the Glass, Dylan Harper's 55% rim frequency ranks in the 98th percentile among all guards, while Castle's 43% rim frequency ranks him in the 91st percentile. Castle's 14.2 drives per game leads all Spurs and is also a top 15 mark in the NBA, and while Dylan Harper only ranks 51st in drives per game, we gotta remember he's only playing 21 minutes a night. Overall, Castle and Harper are young guards who can just basically touch the paint whenever they want to, although they operate in different ways to get inside. Castle combines strength, ball screen savvy, and deceleration to get to the basket, and when he's there, he deploys real vertical pop and explosion. And it's not surprising that a 6'6" guard who moves like this with those kinds of physical tools is just an absolute pain to contain for defenders. As a result, this season, Castle's shooting 69% at the rim, which ranks in the 75th percentile of the entire NBA. Plus, if he's not scoring, Castle's still probably drawing a foul, as he's also attempting 9.5 free throws per 100 possessions, which ranks him in the 98th percentile of the entire league. On the other hand, Dylan Harper might not have the same vertical pop as Castle, but has definitely got his own superpowers. Harper has the footwork of a 10-year veteran with such high-level instincts on how to vary his strides to slip past his defender before turning on the jets at the last possible moment. I've just never seen a young player like Harper who rarely takes inefficient routes to the basket while using his uncanny knack for quickly changing direction without straying from his original path. Overall, Harper's generating 1.2 points per possession on shots at the rim, and that is very impressive, especially considering more than 40% of his attempts come from this area, and also considering 75% of his rim shot attempts are also self-created, which is, by the way, the highest rate among the Spurs roster. But then, Harper and Castle also extend their paint-oriented ways into their playmaking for San Antonio's plethora of cutters and rollers. Excluding Castle, this season, 6 different Spurs players are shooting 67% or better around the basket, and even with Wembanyama missing 14 games, the Spurs still rank 15th in the entire NBA in terms of shooting efficiency at the rim, and these two playmakers are a huge reason why. Stephon Castle's 4.5 rim assists per 100 possession average ranks in the 92nd percentile of the entire league, while Harper's 1.8 average also sits in the 70th percentile. Castle's size, cadence, and individual finishing ability consistently opens up opportunities for teammates around the basket, while Dylan Harper's general high passing IQ and ability to break down defenses keeps his playmaking options open. In this possession, you can see Castle using the Devin Vassell screen to get the switch on Curry. This is an immediate mismatch for Castle as he drives, which automatically forces Draymond Green to bite on the play. But then, Castle smartly makes the last-second dish to Wemby for what is basically a freebie right at the basket. This next play, though, is what really impresses me a lot. Watch how Dylan Harper, even without the help of a ball screen, is able to break down Aaron Wiggins' defense with that change of pace to get to the paint, which inevitably forces Hartenstein into the help. This now opens up a lot of space for Harper to find Luke Cornett open at the dunker spot for the easy finish. Although, despite the early wide-ranging excellence of all 3 Spurs guards, questions helping determine the team's immediate ceiling still remains. Stephon Castle's 19.2% turnover rate, stemming from decision-making and ball-handling issues, is actually the worst in the entire league. Meanwhile, Dylan Harper still lacks a reliable in-between game or sustainable jumper, as he's shooting just around 35% on any field goal away from the basket. So the question here is, can Harper actually broaden his scoring to include a jumper? Although you can argue that with his physical gifts, just bumping up his rim scoring to around 60% would already make him a better scoring threat overall. Meanwhile, De'Aaron Fox's three-point shooting this year is above his career average, but over the past 10 games, his three-point shooting percentage has appeared to come back down to earth. So can he mitigate his jumper-happy approach and still be lethal, especially in the playoffs? But then, I think the good news for Spurs fans is, those questions are only magnified once you frame the Fox, Castle, and Harper trio as a forward-looking centerpiece for the Spurs, rather than as a supporting nucleus around Victor Wembanyama. Obviously, those guards' limitations become less pressing and less central to San Antonio's ceiling when they have a fully healthy and up-to-speed Wembanyama, who by the way is still developing in his own right and who could blossom into much more than just a top 5 player of all time. Though here's the thing, Wemby will be eligible for a contract extension this summer wherein he will get a max worth 25% of the salary cap, with escalators so it could reach up to the higher 30% max, with the highest contract he could get currently being projected at $303 million for 5 years. But whether Wemby gets the 25 or the 30% max, he will for sure be on a bargain, considering a player of this caliber should already be earning the 35% max. This means Wemby will be making below his true value for the first 8 to 9 seasons of his career, when factoring in the rookie scale contract he's currently on. So basically, this gives San Antonio that period until the 2026 to 2027 season to fortify their roster, while Wembanyama's next contract still hasn't kicked in, and while potential max deals for Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper haven't been handed out. Well, in all likelihood, the Spurs will have to alter their backcourt even before Castle gets paid in 2028 and Harper gets paid in 2029. However, this is a good problem they'll have to deal with at least a year or two from now. Currently, it's too early to make a decision because the Spurs just don't have enough information on all three guards yet to know who stays and who goes. First off, I think it's unlikely they trade Fox right away because as we're witnessing, he's the engine of the San Antonio Spurs offense and he will be very important in the playoffs as his veteran experience makes him the most viable scoring option among all the team's guards. So I just expect the Spurs to play out the season with their main core intact. But even then, what happens if, as we approach the trade deadline, another all-star on the market makes the Spurs a preferred destination? Even if that's not Giannis, what if it's someone like Lauri Markkanen? Though even then, the Spurs will likely conserve their top players at least this season. Along with Wembanyama and their guards, that could mean making players such as Devin Vassell and Carter Bryant off limits to a trade. They may even insist on keeping veteran contributors like Barnes, Cornette, and Champagnie for the playoffs, which means any Spurs offer for any trade target would be based on draft picks, as they can still trade up to 4 first-round picks this season as well as 3 first-round pick swaps. Again, this 2026 season until the 2027 season is the best time for the Spurs to make a big move because that's when they'll still have flexibility under the first apron while also facing fewer restrictions in transactions. For example, they can still take back more salaries than they're sending out in a trade, and that might not be the case beginning in 2027 to 2028 once both Fox and Wembanyama are already on max contracts. Again, let's say Lauri Markkanen becomes available at the trade deadline, and for sure, Markkanen would be an excellent long-term frontcourt partner with Wembanyama. His ability to stretch the floor, shoot from outside, and crash the paint would further complicate things for defenses who are already lacking solutions against San Antonio right now. Well, in a trade, the Spurs would need to get within 25% of Markkanen's $46.4 million salary to match it, and they can get there by hypothetically trading Keldon Johnson, Kelly Olynyk, and Jeremy Sohan, and from there, it could be all about negotiating additional draft picks that come with them. All in all, San Antonio has enough expandable salaries to trade for a max-level player as early as this season, and that enables the Spurs to add to their team even without subtracting from their main core. The Spurs' 3-guard problem will become a good problem soon enough, but that is something they'll have to address maybe a year or 2 years from now, and that's something that shouldn't really bother them considering having someone like Victor Wembanyama on the team already raises the Spurs' floor so high that potentially making small mistakes in terms of roster building might not even make that much of a meaningful difference for San Antonio, at least for now. But what do you guys think is a realistic ceiling for this current San Antonio Spurs score? Feel free to drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and again, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing as well. Again, this has been Real Balls, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.